And welcome everybody. As we're coming in, I can see you're connecting to audio. My name's Phil. I'm the co-host of this session. We'll be starting in 5 minutes time. And a couple of points today. We're going to ask everyone to put their videos on. So if you can, you'll be on mute at the moment, but maybe if you're up for it, try to put your video on and we can wave at each other for a bit. You can see it. The people who are here already are the speakers and the panelists today. Thank you for switching on screens. I'm Phil here, and ask you as we're gathering, if you know how to do this. In the top right bit of your picture, there are 3 dots. You can rename yourself. You can put, as well as your name, make sure it's the right name, and put something about your role and organization there as well. We're expecting a few hundred people today. You're the first 50 or so of them. So please do rename yourselves if you can, and put in, by clicking the top 3 buttons in your picture or on the participants tab, you can put your organization and role title. So my name is Phil Hadridge. I'm the co-host of this session. And just looking at you, some of us were talking about where we are and what the weather's like. If you want to say hello in the chat, please do. I'm just going to ask our speakers, and anyone else can join in on this. If you're wearing something or sitting on something that relates to the theme of what we're doing today, can you type it into chat? This is up for anyone. So please, can we put something in as we're thinking about circular textiles and how to invite all of us to give it a go in chat. We'll be using chat a few times today. Thank you for those who are renaming yourselves. So the top right 3 dots, always wearing a recycled shirt. So we've got a few things here. So in chat, we're capturing, for those who are just coming in, we're capturing some things we're wearing or sitting on that connect to the theme today. So can I just check, how many of us can we get the cameras for? How many? So bottom left, start video. And we're not going to ask you to do it for the whole time, but there'll be a couple of moments where we'd love to see everyone. So how are we doing? What's the maximum number of cameras on we can get as we're gathering? Thank you for giving it a go. We turn up at these things to listen, sometimes to lurk, also to interact. We are recording this session, so you can see it's the top left-hand corner. Ola's recording it. Ola, you're in Amsterdam, I think, Ola. And so.
Yes, in rainy Amsterdam.
Rainy Amsterdam, yeah.
Definitely. Awesome, full on.
Fantastic. Thank you for everyone making it early as well, checking the technology is working. And thank you for those who've got their videos on. Thank you for that. We've got a few comments going in here. If anyone wants to join in as well, if you've just joined, you won't see the previous chat. What are you wearing or sitting on, surrounded by, that relates to the themes that we're talking today? I've got a repaired shirt that's on, collarless shirt. The collar got taken off. And as you look around, think of who you know and who you don't know, and wave at each other. You can private chat to each other as well. We're up to 82 people now. We are going to start on time in 3 minutes time. So thank you for that. And invite you to think of your questions as you're coming into this session as well. We've got a few ways that we're going to capture your ideas. We're going to get your thoughts, and we'll say a little bit more about that when we start in 2 minutes time. We'll start with Becky early, who for me is top right of my screen. So we're nudging up to 100 people on at the moment. This is great. Some hand-me-down pajamas being worn in Ecuador, early morning in Ecuador. So Ecuador's 6 hours behind the UK. So I'm going to make that not even 6 a.m. in Ecuador. Could anyone beat Ecuador? Anyone earlier than 6 a.m.? This might be our prize for earliest. Please type in if you can beat Ecuador. Anyone? I know we've got some people on the East Coast US. I think we've got some folk coming in from Asia and Australia as well. We'll check on that in a moment. Yeah, 10 p.m. Melbourne, Australia. Yeah, well done. Well done. So we're going from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at the moment. Let's see if we can widen that range, or that's it. That's pretty good, isn't it? Can anyone beat Melbourne? Anyone from New Zealand or from further into the Pacific? type it in. Sunny Belgium. Thank you for that. We've got 1 minute more and then we'll start. And we'll kick off. For those who've just joined, invite you to rename how you appear on screen. If it doesn't contain your proper name, sometimes people use other folks' accounts, your role and organization. It'd be great to help us connect, that we can see who you are. So that of your picture on Zoom, top right, 3 little dots, you can rename yourself and put in your organization and your role. So we've got some colleagues in here from Turkey, from India, and we're doing well on that. So as we kick off in this session, we are recording it. We've invite to rename. Let's just quickly check. If you are from somewhere in the Americas, can you type in chat now where you are in the Americas? Just type into chat where you are. So we've had a few people there already. We're up to 116 at the moment. We're going to work the world. This is a bit of a stadium wave. We're starting in the Americas. Can you just type if you're in Americas, and we'll just stick with the Americas for a moment. Got a Brooklyn here. I know we've got a few. Nottingham. We're already into Europe. So we've got Europe. We've got Nottingham, Barcelona, Copenhagen, carrying on in Europe, Lithuania, UK. As we carry on, then we've got some colleagues from Turkey, India. Just type in where you are: Aberdeen, Amsterdam, Finland. We're working. We've got a real global audience here, so we can see where we're coming in from around the world. Thank you very much for coming to this session today. Indonesia. So we're going from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. at the moment. Perth, Western Australia, Berkshire. I'm in Cambridge, UK. It's really great to meet with you. And as we come into this session, for those who are just joining, we are recording this session. And please do engage as fully as you can. If you want to put your videos on so you can keep with us, please do. We'll wave and see each other. And if you would like to rename yourself, we can see who each other is. My name is Phil Hadridge. I'm the co-host of this session. Thank you for joining us. And I'll pass now to Becky, who will orientate us to the focus of this session, how it's going to work. So Becky, over to you.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you so much for such a great introduction and welcoming everybody to this immense event and session today. I want to make sure that everybody who's joining knows where the chat bar is. It's going to be a really important part of this call. And I'm going to set you all a task, a little thinking task to get going with. So it's a word association moment. We'd like you to have a think about what one word for you sums up circular textiles. So you've just got a few seconds to type that in, and we're going to collect all of those words together. So please have a think and enter. What is circular textiles for you? Great, thank you. Those are coming in thick and fast. So just to make sure you know where the chat bar is and how to use it, you need to keep an eye on things there today because quite a lot is going to be going on. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is take a note of this Mentimeter code. It's really important in this session today. We've got 60 minutes. We've got a lot of people joining us. We want to get your questions for the panel, and we want to be upvoting those questions. So menti.com is where you need to go, and you need to enter a code there, which is 408629-4. When you get in there, you'll have an invitation to leave a question, but you'll also see the questions of everyone else, and you get to upvote questions. So we will only have time to read a certain number of questions. We'd like to read the most popular questions and the most burning questions from this audience. So please go in and upvote throughout the whole session. The running order, we're going to introduce the panel in just a moment, and they're going to start answering what Circular Textiles Day is all about and why it was founded. And then we're going to take a deep dive moment through the lens of materials and resource flows and look at this 30-year planning work that we've all been engaged in, and invite you to take go on a journey really with Cindy Rhodes through the next 30 years and how she sees that mapping out. Then we will take questions. So there is going to be a Q&A session. So your questions will be answered, I hope, during that session before we finally round off and finish at, if you're in the UK, 1 p.m, 1300 hours. And of course, we know that that's greatly variable depending on where you are. So before we get to the panel, as a co-host, but also a co-founder of World Circular Textiles Day, I've got a 2-minute slot to tell you really where this is coming from and set the tone a little bit. This year, we've all experienced an extraordinary change in the way we live and work. The pandemic has opened our eyes to many things. A group of us, circular textile advocates, got together in meetings convened by Cindy Rhodes and talked about the changes that were taking place and what they might mean for the future. The need for a clear vision has never felt more important nor timely. Together we have so much knowledge, so many ideas, so much work is ongoing. But what does it look like when it comes together to create a future? A future industry needs planning. It needs collaboration. It needs coordination. Yes, we need a roadmap, but it also needs an inspiring vision to drive towards. We believe full circularity can be achieved, and it can bring about a more equitable, just, transparent, and wholly sustainable way to dress. In 1963, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a public speech during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, in which he called for civil and economic rights and an end to racism in the United States. King described his dreams of freedom and equality arising from a land of slavery and hatred. He said the iconic words, "I have a dream." During the pandemic, the need for us all to address inequality and racism became clearer than ever. The future we're aiming for is one where Black Lives Matter. Addressing social inequality, social exclusion can drive the change, the need for redesigned industry. We want to develop a shared vision with you all. We want to co-create and retro-engineer a future for this globally damaging industry. We've achieved circular products, but we need culture change. We want to start at the end, to work backwards, step by step, and we're going to need you all to be part of the journey. So now if we could have the panel slide up, we can move on to introduce the panel. Fantastic, thank you. The next slide actually has the panel on it. Great. So you already met myself and Phil. We're on the top right row there. Joining us today, we have Gwen Cunningham from Circular Economy. She's calling from Dublin, but Circular Economy is based in Amsterdam. We have Cindy Rhodes from One Again Technologies, and we have Dr. Kate Goldsworthy, co-director for Centre for Circular Design. We've also asked some of our founding signatories to join us. So we have Karla Magruder from Accelerating Circularity and Rachel Kibbe from Retrievr. And we're also joined by a MA graduating student, Sephora Kamakutola. So the next part of the seminar is for me to to hand over to Cindy and ask her to really begin by explaining what World Circular Textile Day is and why it was founded. Cindy.
Thanks, Becky. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for that introduction. You've summed it up there. I have, let's see, a couple of slides here just to give you an overview of kind of what it is. First of all, happy World Circular Textiles Day, everyone. Firstly, it's October 8th. This is year one. And I guess the first point of it is that it's an opportunity to celebrate and to recognize all of the diverse group of people, companies, policymakers, organizations, everyone committed to making circularity a reality. And, you know, it's a long road. It's very hard work, and it's really important. We have a long road ahead of us. It's important to celebrate the small successes and the progress along the way. Secondly, it's about imagining, you alluded to it there, Becky, it's imagining where we want to get to. What is the end goal? What could full circularity look like in 2050? And I think once you know where you want to get to, it's much easier to plan the journey. And so we've defined circularity success as a time when there's dignity, equity, and equality, a time when our shared textile resources in the form of products and raw materials are kept in continual circulation, and when virgin resources are no longer needed. And then thirdly, one of the aims for WCTD is to become an online living and breathing time capsule, charting the progress and the momentum of circularity over the next 3 decades. This future hasn't been written. 2020 is the starting point to begin shaping and crafting this future collectively. So we'll talk more about this in the future, but I'd like to hand it over to Gwen to talk about what WCTD means for a circular economy.
Thanks, Cindy. Well, maybe just to add to that, I mean, we've been at Circular Economy for the past few years trying to track and monitor what does it mean when we talk about circularity right now. Where are we at currently? And that's the Circular Gap initiative that we have. And the latest numbers that we got from that report tells us that the world is now 8.6% circular. So all of the minerals, fossil fuels, metals, etc. that we're extracting, only 8.6 of that is being cycled back. And so when you talk about a long road, I think that puts it into perspective. Fully circular by 2050, it sparks my imagination, it sparks a sense of urgency, it puts the fire under all of us. And while I'm a doer, and I think at Circular Economy, we're really about the practical implementation of the circular economy, I also think there's a huge power in articulating what we're working towards. And I think of one of my favorite poets, Ocean Vuong. He says, the future is in our mouths, which is very different from this age-old, you know, the future is in your hands. And it is both. But how can we kind of collectively imagine and articulate where we want to be in 2050 in detail? And as you said, Becky, work backwards from that. So what are the leverage points, the dependencies, the infrastructure policy that needs to come into place? Who are the players and the technologies that we need to be relying on? And showcasing the development all the while. So I think it's a very bold initiative. It's a very creative initiative. It's timely, which we've seen from the number of signatories that we've rallied behind it. And I'm really excited to see how it molds and is taken up by the community. Today is day one, so we have lots to look forward to. And maybe Kate, you can tell us about your perspective from the Centre for Circular Design.
Thank you, Gwen. I mean, the Centre of Circular Design, we are so thrilled to be part of this this mission, really, to accelerate the circular materials economy. Designing with the end at the beginning, I mean, that's what we do at the Centre. It's what we're all about, but this is on a massive scale. This is really designing the end vision and working back from that, and that's what really resonated with us. I think it's, from our point of view, it's important to really say that circularity is not only a materials question. We know it's you know, the materials and technology side of this is vital, but alongside that, we need to be developing systems and also changing mindsets. So, you know, it's really something that everybody can join in and contribute to. And I think we're at such an exciting tipping point right now. As Gwen says, this is so timely. I think technology is creating real potential for our materials supply chain to move towards regenerative and renewable. And I don't just mean natural. I think, you know, the kind of technologies that Warn Again are working on give us the real potential to turn even synthetics into renewables. And I just want to say, I think this is a fantastic opportunity to continue this long partnership with our friends, not only at again, but also circular economy, but also to engage with everyone here today, because I think that's where then really new and exciting solutions will lie. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. It's amazing how many people have rallied and joined the call as founding signatories. I think at last count, over 77 industry partners plus individuals were coming in at around 100 people that have added their voice to the launch and to given us testimonials. I'd like to read a couple of those before then coming to back to the panel. Canopy is committed to working creatively with brand partners, producers, innovators, and investors to make the next generation solutions the norm as quickly as possible. At AII, we wholeheartedly support World Circular Textiles Day to further accelerate the transition to a circular economy. Our organisation was founded to scale impact with the industry, and we're proudly endorsing the adoption of circular materials and the acceleration of new business models to achieve the industry's environmental targets. I think this one as well, I'll read out. Progress has been made, but there's still lots to do. Inspiring and collaborating with others will remain fundamental to unlock some of the biggest challenges we face, such as the innovation needed to make textile recycling fully scalable. And they go on, and please go to the website to see more and more of those. But for now, I'd like to come to Karla, please. Tell us why Accelerating Circularity wanted to join World Circular Textiles Day.
Well, first of all, I wanted to be part of this great group. But Accelerating Circularity's vision is a world where textiles are in continuous use and the adoption of virgin materials are based on strategic limits or not used at all. And the industry has lowered their greenhouse gas emissions to meet UN targets. So the idea of World Textile Day is a perfect fit for us. We believe that to make change, everyone needs to have the same vision. And so creating this vision that we can all share is really a great thing to do. The actions that we're going to take will differ, but if we're all heading in the same direction, we're going to have a circular textile day, hopefully before 2050.
Absolutely, Karla, thank you. And Rachel, joining us from New York, where it's very early in the morning. Welcome. And why did you guys want to join?
Because we believe that collection is the entry point into the circular economy, and it's probably one of the least sexy parts of the equation to talk about, but it's so vital. We're an on-demand collector of used clothing and electronics, and we believe that by going to people's homes in the way that you go to people's homes to collect their paper bottles and cans is the way that you can truly scale these systems of collection. And so by being part of this, we think that it really elevates sort of the message of the need for brands, legislators, and the public to know that in order to imagine a circular future, we have to start with collection. Used apparel and footwear are valuable materials, and they are going to become more and more valuable as the years go on and with climate change, but you have to intercept them to get the value out of them, and you have to intercept them through means of collection. So scaled collection is going to be really needed to fuel these advanced methods that we're all really looking forward to and talking about. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go on. Please
raw
finish.
Materials are just going to become scarce sooner than later. And so I think there's some urgency to this. So I really like that there's a 2050 timeline.
Great. So yeah, I mean, acceleration and also the role of consumers and users in our closets being at the heart of how this is going to flow and work in the future. I'd also like to stay with sort of thinking about the future now, and actually if you could stop screen sharing for a moment so that we can go to see people. I'd like to introduce MA graduate Sephora Kamakatello, whose MA show goes live today. University of the Arts London's online degree shows have been running since July with the BA students, and the MA students, their work has gone live today, and it's brilliant to be able to have Sephora join us to talk about her work and really to give us the perspective of the next generation. So Sephora, hi, welcome. Why don't you start by telling us about your graduate collection?
So hi, I'm Karla. So I just graduated from Chelsea, and my project was about reusing end-of-all textile waste from high-end fashion brands from London to reuse them and to create garments and new collections. So I retrieved unused fabrics. In my case, it was recycled denim. So yeah, to create a recycled garments.
Thank you. And your brief was quite unusual because you really wanted to put, you know, some of yourself and some of your memories into the work to almost give more value to what was essentially discarded material.
Yeah, because for me it was important to have also an aesthetic which will be attractive and which we will be able to forget the fact that I reused discarded textiles at the beginning. So my memories and my family and my history was a way to connect with the garment and with the textiles.
Great. And so you're really sort of building this, you really for the future want to be looking at how we can build more of our values into clothing. And what would be your request or your message to large scale brands and retailers? What do you want to see?
I want to see in each company in the next years sustainable designers in each company, because they will be able to understand how we can reuse the waste that they already have and how we can provide and stop this waste. And yeah, this is what I will want right now.
And you know, how old will you be by 2050, by the way?
I will be 50 something.
Yeah, so you're going to be, you know, you're going to have this kind of community of people around you. You're going to have a very different, let's hope, sort of wardrobe and clothing experience. What do you want that to be like? What does your generation, what would you say you guys are really asking for?
Right now, I really think that we want to be able to identify ourselves in what we wear, in what we're eating, and we want the company to respect the values that we have. So it's really important.
Great. And really, in a way, some of that work can be much quicker than 30 years, can't it? Maybe we're going to talk today a bit more about why we've set 30-year targets, but in terms of appreciating your values through the clothes that they're making, that can be done quicker, right?
Yeah, I think too. I think that we can already do it with young designers, with ourselves, and we can bring solutions to existing companies. In my case, I was interested in smaller companies, so I think that it's relevant and it will be easier with them.
Yeah, you sort of right at the end of your MA, you were getting really interested in how sort of graduating designers can work with SME companies and sort of be really creative and bring new models and ideas through them, because you sort of felt that the change could happen more quickly that way.
Yeah, I think because we have the next voice, so, and we have the ideas.
Yes, brilliant. Okay, Sephora, thank you so much for joining us. We'll come back to you with the questions later on. And please do take a note that the degree show is there and open today. The next part of our session now, we're going to go on a deep dive and explore 2050 through one lens, materials and resource flows. And Cindy, you can screen share again now, Cindy, and please do talk us through the next 30 years.
1 second here. Okay, do I have my volume on?
You do.
Great. Okay, so this is the bit where we get our crystal balls out. This first slide here, in our provocation of 2050, we've imagined the roadmap to circularity to roll out over 3 distinct phases. Phase 1 is the innovation and R&D years, which we're right in the middle of today. It's happening. We're bringing the puzzle pieces together to form the circular system, and we're figuring out how to bring them all together. Phase 2 is where the model for the system and all of the connected components has been understood and it's ready for replication and rollout. And then phase 3, the expansion and completion years, this is about the system with multiple flows of products and raw materials is being optimized until we reach our goal, which is virgin resources are no longer needed. So you can also see here on the line with the x-axis, we've charted the increase in awareness and engagement in sustainability and how that started morphing into circularity when end of use was built in. So it's a time when we advanced from doing things better, like reducing our environmental footprint, to having a deeper understanding of the Earth's finite resources and the growing challenge of textile waste. And so to reiterate here in our 3 phases, we don't believe circularity is just about the environment. It's about building better lives for the millions of people employed globally to produce and handle both new and used textiles. Now, this next beautiful slide here, which is very detailed. Don't get hung up on all of the information here. You'll be able to download the 2050 Retrospective Brochure that we produced for WCTD 2050. It'll be on the website, and I believe we're sending it out after the webinar. What I want to do is draw your attention to this box in the middle. This is a prototype of an advanced textile sorting facility. It doesn't exist yet today, parts of it do, but it's the next phase evolution of today's sorting facility for post-consumer textiles. And it will work in the same ways it does today in terms of textiles will come in on the left here. They'll be separated manually by people into rewearable fractions, as you can see, going up into the reuse and resale markets. But what's different here is that all the non-rewearables, the non-usable fractions, those are the ones with holes, with stains, no second life value, will be introduced into a highly automated system going off to the right, with lots of robots and conveyor belts and fiber detection technology with that circle in the middle, like with Siptex in Sweden or FiberSort in the Netherlands. And each garment will shoot off into different fiber content buckets. It'll be whether it's pure polyester, pure cotton, polycotton blends. And then they may go through a clip and a strip step where all the buttons, zips, and metals are removed. Then they'll get baled up and sold off into the regenerative and mechanical recycling markets. So these facilities, as I say, they don't exist yet today. It's too early. The market drivers, which are namely industrialized regenerative recycling plants, aren't fully there yet. But this type of system will help to enable the high volume, high mechanization, and lower cost sorting to supply future circular markets. And I think I'm sticking on this slide for a bit because this facility is really important in terms of, this was our starting point for our 3-phased approach. As Rachel said, it's about collection, it's about the resources, it's about our big global pool of end-of-use textiles. So we've really taken the perspective of, products and raw materials and understanding the flow of resources in a circular system. So rather than starting with designing for circularity, we've started with the products and raw materials. And then, as Becky said, being able to reverse engineer how to get there. So really important point there. Now we're diving into phase 1. This is the innovation and R&D years, where we're at today and where we're going in the next couple of years. And these product and raw material processing hubs, represented in the dark green circles, will be coming online in the not too distant future. They could be in Europe, in the UK, North America, India, maybe elsewhere, but these are our predictions. Discussions are already being had about them today. And the economics will be what drive these facilities. High volume, automated sorting facilities close to the source of collection. They'll be far more effective, cost effective than shipping textiles clear across the planet to be sorted in, by hand in lower cost labor regions. So the raw materials that are produced from, say, regenerative recycling processes in these hubs may, in the first phase, need to be shipped to the high volume production regions that we know of today. So those little green dots where fiber, textile, garment manufacturing is currently happening. But what we can see in phase one is we start to see a shift in the flow of materials here, where rather than textiles going to landfill and incineration, we're starting to collect and reuse resources in a much more intelligent way. And during this phase, the product and raw material processing hubs will be piloted, and they will prove the ecosystem economics of circularity. Now, this is really an oversimplification of what kind of phase one circularity can look like. We've taken it from a raw materials, a process flow perspective, but of course it's going to include many other components like digitization, product passports for garments, traceability, verification, policy change, all of those things which we're going to get into. And as Becky was saying, the role and the value of people as suppliers of resources back into the industry. So this is our starting point for the 2050 vision. All the puzzle pieces in phase one here are together, and it's time to replicate and roll it out. Phase two here, the infrastructure and rollout years. You can now see that a global rollout of the product and raw materials processing hubs are starting to take place. Collection systems feed into reuse and regenerative recycling plants, and the additional advanced textile sorting facilities, which you can see in the red dots here, are established to start handling the increased textile collection globally. And then we'll start seeing the production supply chain players. These are the light green dots. The fiber spinners, the textile producers are going to start popping up in regions where the circular raw materials are now being reprocessed and produced. Understanding the flows of resources from a systems and people perspective now will enable industry and governments to start developing circular textile cities and regional circular textile hubs, which brings us to phase three, the expansion and completion years. And this is when the model is tried and tested. The rollout and expansion are underway. Circular textile hubs have formed on every continent, creating efficient flows of resources in line with our planetary boundaries for the textile industry. Diversity flourishes with large and small scale and regional and local production models. Of course, some international trade will still exist, but design has become the universal language of circularity. Commerce has a whole new face, and the total transition to 100% circulation of products and raw materials is in its final stretch. So this is a very broad overview. It's a framework. It's open for building upon, and this is what WCTD is all about. Gwen's going to cover how you can get involved shortly, but before we do that, I wanted to hand it over to Kate and Gwen here to build on what's been presented here from the other lenses, and also Karla and Rachel.
Thanks, Cindy. I just really wanted to sort of tackle one kind of, I guess, elephant in the room in a way around around tensions between different approaches to this. And I think I just want to sort of really state that this is about us working together and fitting together all of the approaches. You know, many people who've been working in sustainability for years are not huge fans of circularity as being the answer. And I think what we really are calling for is circularity and sustainability to be part of a much more complete picture that includes not only material sustainability, but equity for all. And just a sort of call really to keep talking through these challenges, especially with those who might disagree with you. I think, you know, breaking out of the echo chamber in this area is so important, and I really hope that today we'll start to do that. And just really one comment around the scale of this problem. I mean, it's been predicted that by as near as 2025, we'll be producing over 90 million tons of polyester every year, and that will represent, you know, over 90% of global fiber production. We're not just talking about clothing here and fashion. It's a much bigger challenge that goes much deeper. And I think, you know, different solutions will be needed for different circular parts of that change and that challenge. So, you know, this is going to be a really dynamic and evolving challenge to 2050. But I believe that by focusing together on this shared vision as we are, we can really sort of plot the way there. I think, Gwen, over to you now.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Well, I find, Cindy, your vision that you've just set out, and especially this idea of these product and material hubs, interesting, you know, precisely because it really can't help but prompt a response from the listener. You know, two questions for me immediately come to the table as I listen to you. One is, you know, firstly, do I agree with the future that you've set out? So you're confronted immediately with whether you have similar or conflicting versions of events in your head for the year 2050, something which we rarely actually discuss because we're so focused on the immediate here and now and what can be done tomorrow, what can be done in the next year. But I suppose it puts on the table how divergent our thinking might be about the far future. So, you know, while you see this as a centralized, replicable hub that's combining sorting, reuse, recycling at industrial volumes, you know, how does that relate to what I had envisioned? And secondly, it also asks, well, if I do agree, if that, then what? So it invites addition, you know, it's really the bones of a plan, but what is the additional substance that we need to build out around it? So naturally, other questions start to spark around how do we envision the ownership of these hubs and the materials flowing through them? How could these facilities be gathering data that is giving a feedback loop to the design and production of new products? To the points that have been mentioned earlier around the social kind of foundation, what are the jobs and skills and labor implications of these new circular supply chains? And perhaps how do we, you know, retrofit that into the education system that we have when it comes to fashion and textiles? So I think it is a part of the full vision that we want to build out as part of World Circular Textiles Day, but it gives us something to hang our hat on and to respond to. That's the power of it. And from my perspective, what I would love to take as a next phase is also to think about the alternative modes of production and consumption that fit around this. So the circular business models like rental, like resale, which were kind of part of your vision but need to be separately built out. And what are all of the voices on the table around how we see those alternative business models developing, and the potential risks and blind spots that we need to get ahead of right now while they're in their early phases of growth. So those are my 2 cents.
Brilliant, Gwen. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Karla and Rachel, what's this making you think from your perspective? Is this a useful vision? Have you got ideas you want to interject here? Gone to sleep.
I guess I can start. I don't have that much to add. What's been said is great. It really does prompt a lot of thinking. How did I envision the future, and how does that compare to what I'm seeing here? And this is ideal, and I love an ideal concept. the only challenge with I've found, especially in the fashion industry, with an ideal concept is I think a lot of people would like to wait around to interject themselves when the future is ideal, and I don't think we have time for that. I think we all have to start collaborating now. And so and that means capital, that means legislation, that means action. What things can we do to tackle that 85% of clothes that are going to landfill and incineration right now, and increasing exponentially every year?
Good point, because I really do think we're stymied by a lack of ability for long-term thinking and long-term planning, particularly sort of in higher office situations. You know, it's all about, you know, the change that they can see in the term that they're in that position. And I think that the plan of these sort of 3 phases allow people to get involved in what phase is appropriate to the level of their thinking or their research or the direction of their company. And then also the way in which the sort of lenses are emerging. Cindy's sort of presented around material and resource flows, but we also have a social lens, we have material regeneration and agricultural lenses, and we have recirculation of existing goods and charity sector, secondhand. So what we want is people to get involved, I think, in the right places, in these working groups, in these areas, and build these visions outward, make them connected, and make them coherent. Karla, did you want to add anything?
I would agree with what everybody has said so far, basically. I think one of the things that seeing these 3 phases does for me, and I hope it will do for others as well, is it starts to it sort of draws you in, right? It draws you into those areas where you feel like you might be able to make a difference. And I think that, as everybody said on the phone, it's going to take everyone to participate. It is a system. I think that because the way that we work today was built sort of, it grew. This will also grow, but we need to be part of a system, and we need to find out where we fit into the system. And laying this out, I think, allows people to see where they might fit in the system and participate.
Thank you. Absolutely, 100%. And I think that, that's been the feeling amongst us for some time, that all the innovation and progress that's taking place does interconnect. It doesn't malalign. It is not in conflict. It can actually sort of take us in the same direction together. And it's very interesting to see the threads coming in now in terms of the questions and the chat, in terms of what knowledge people have and where that's going to plug in. It's great to see Cassie from MA Biodesign, Central St. Martin's, such an important field, and they're now on a course which is really looking at training them to think long term about radical new materials, new material and growth systems, and the way in which biomaterials are going to feed their way through this plan. So yeah, it's really, I suppose, sort of bringing us back to what we're here to talk about today. World Circular Textiles Day is a moment, a place for us to meet, a place for us to share, a place for us to build collaborative plans, and to remain excited, hopeful, and work towards a vision.
Becky, just can I do one closing comment on this before we go to the next phase, which I think is important? And after hearing people, I think just because it's a 30-year timeline, we shouldn't let that make us feel apathetic and that we've got time. We have to, during phase 1, put every single bit of effort to making this happen, because the problem is so mammoth and the work that needs to be done is just extreme. The amount, shifting to this whole new system and new production methods and everything is going to take such a lot of effort. So, but if we can do it any quicker, then all the better. Let's say we can change the title later to 2025 if we can get there sooner.
Yeah, in fact, it's one of our aims, isn't it, is try to get there sooner. But in fact, it was quite interesting, the discussions that were taking place on social media before this event about, gosh, is it really going to take that long, or actually might it take longer? This relates directly to the next session, which is going to the Menti questions, and those that are the most upvoted amongst the questions from you. For those that joined late, you can pose a question on menti.com, MENTI.com, by entering the code 4086294. So although I am trying to keep an eye on the chat bar, the most upvoted questions have been taking place on Menti. And I'm now going to start addressing these questions over to the panel. So the positions are changing rapidly, actually. I had highlighted a question which directly related to what Cindy was talking about, which is a question about Europe. I think this sort of came in actually before you did your presentation, but I think people are wondering what this looks like in terms of Europe, where there is no significant textile manufacturing. Do you want to pick up this? The question actually says, how can we create a circular textile economy in regions where there's no significant textile manufacturing, such as Europe? So are we going to be making more textiles, or are we going to flow them over and then recirculate them?
So where this thinking comes from, and I think it's been talked about more and more, is that if our end-of-use textiles are here and we're collecting them here and we're reprocessing them here, it will make a lot more sense. If we end up producing polyester pellets, cellulosic pulp, the raw materials, the very building blocks that go into fiber spinning, yes, we can ship them to faraway regions in that first phase, but eventually it's going to start making sense to bring those kind of more regional. It'll be the economics that drive it. I mean, if we end up staying with very concentrated supply chains, and that's the most economic, that is what the industry will form around. But I think we have to think about it from the materials flow and the economics. And that's what we're finding with collecting end-of-use textiles. It's going to shift things, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I think even the reshoring that we're starting to see, even before COVID, but definitely as a result of COVID, is happening at an even more accelerated pace. So it's not going to be overnight, it's a long-term process.
Absolutely. You can stay mic'd, because I've got a question for you and Kate to answer about polyester. There's threads coming in on the questions around the role of PET bottles in this picture, but actually more specifically, is polyester totally recyclable? Is it a part of our sustainable future? Surely we should be looking at getting rid of it, she asks antagonistically. Kate, maybe give Cindy a break and you come on board.
I mean, it's such a vital aspect, I think, of this whole conversation. Like it or loathe it, polyester is such a fundamental part of our world. It's, as I said before, it's not just about fashion and clothing, it's about sort of hygiene, health and medicine, transport, computing, communications, every sector, building, geography, geotextiles, it's under the roads. We have to tackle the polyester problem. And Cindy and I did a short project a few years back to try and calculate, how much polyester there already was above ground. And we very quickly came to the conclusion that we have plenty of virgin material in circulation right now. And the only way forward that I can see to deal with something that is such a big part of our textile materials flow is to make it recoverable, is to regenerate it. And plastic bottles are absolutely a part of that cycle, but it's the fiber to fiber regeneration that I think will make the real difference. So it's an important fiber. It does a lot for us, but we have to treat it with the respect of a 2 million year old resource that it deserves.
Yeah, okay, great answer. We've got 10 minutes to spend with questions now, which is great, and they're coming in thick and fast. And I'm going to jump over to the most upvoted question and maybe ask Gwen and other people to come in on this. But how can a circular economy truly prioritise social fairness and environmental sustainability over profit under capitalism? That's the most upvoted question, and it really is, I think, the question for all of us to try to answer for the rest of our lives. But Gwen, you've got a couple of minutes.
I don't have the rest of my life. I have a few minutes. Yeah, I think this is key. I also upvoted it, so I put myself in this position. But it's also a relatively new lens that has been added to the circular economy debate, and rightly so, around kind of the social aspect. And yes, of course, materials flowing in continuation for as long as possible, but what of people? And I think this is also one of these the frictions, let's say, that has existed in the past between sustainability and circularity, that's now being addressed, put on the table. And we've started to look at it more and more with the Jobs and Skills program at Circular Economy, looking at the question of inclusivity, diversity, decent work, and how does the circular economy and circular strategies help or hinder those efforts. And it's really a new field of thinking. So when we think of the huge anticipated volume of jobs that will be gained with the circular economy, there's also, of course, a corresponding loss of jobs in parts of the world with the traditional linear work that happens, and also a shift in roles. So how do we work towards a just transition? That's been really critical. And another piece of that puzzle is also some piece of work that we've recently released around the question of resilience, which is a little bit of a buzzword at the moment in light of COVID. How do we create resilient organizations, individual systems, and whether circularity, again, can be part of a move towards a more resilient society. And I won't have a chance to go into that in full detail, but maybe we link it in the chat, because it really shows that, yes, there are some nods towards the fact that circularity can push us into a more resilient society, but also there are big risks and blind spots associated with it. So for instance, in our Switching Gear project at the moment, which is looking at the advance of rental and resale, you can imagine a question very naturally might arise. Okay, I start to sell my denim 2, 3, 4 times in my current market of Europe, but how is the profit that I generate through that actually being redistributed back along the supply chain of the people who originally made this product? And it's the future thinking that makes us tackle those tough questions. So I'm very happy to see it as the most upvoted question. We don't have full answers, and that will be part of what this work ahead of us is in the next few years.
Absolutely. It's a call to arms for partnerships with those experts. It's about the new revenue models, new taxation models, new business models, new production concepts. And I guess what we want to do is commit to building a better future together and making sure that we're inclusive, and it's not just a materials conversation. I'm going to ask, therefore, Kate to answer a question that's the second most upvoted question, which is, how can researchers support industry in the transition to circularity? And I want to make sure you think about all researchers, if you think about all the universities, all the academics, what can they do? What can they bring?
Well, I mean, I suppose the easy answer is just, talk and work together as much as is humanly possible. I mean, I think, collaboration in this area is so at the heart of it. And it's another call for sort of not staying in our own comfort zones and echo chambers, and really speaking to those who might bring a different perspective. I mean, I know we've been involved in the last few years of doing a lot of research where design and creativity work, hand in hand with the harder sciences, and it's incredible what everybody brings to the table. It's not as simple as the scientists have the answers. We sort of interrogate and poke and prod and find new angles. And I think, just to give an example of a group we've been working with lately based at Exeter University, a group of sort of bioscientists who've been and marine biologists looking at the microfiber problem, which is massive, you know, globally and really not yet understood. And they're finding that a big proportion of the fibers that they find in the Galapagos and at the other sort of hotspots are predominantly natural fibers, cellulosics, and that those fibers dump their chemicals more quickly and therefore cause, you know, different but equal damage to those of synthetics, which hold on to the chemicals and are irritants to animals. So it's such a complex space. And the more we can understand about each other's issues, then I think, you know, the more we can come to a joint way forward.
Absolutely, because quite often there is misinformation, or at least there's sort of misunderstanding or miscommunication, and that can lead to many problems. And I think I'm going to bring the question in now about greenwashing. Maybe sometimes that's about misunderstanding, but also predominantly that might be about dishonesty, or simply using one sort of progress step to sort of convince the consumer that, you know, this is a totally circular product, or we're now a totally circular company, etc. Now, it's a tricky issue. What do we think about greenwashing? Where does it fit into this process map, this sort of journey that we are on, and of our founding signatories? You know, how do they incrementally make these changes and tell people about them, but without being accused of greenwashing? Maybe Gwen or Cindy, you might pick that up.
I'm happy.
Karla.
I'm happy to jump in just with a quick one. I personally feel like in some ways, yes, greenwashing still exists, but for the most part, in our experience, the companies we're talking to, the brands we're working with, have an absolute wholehearted focus to move towards circularity. If they're not doing it and proving it by their actions, then they shouldn't be talking about it. And from our experience, I mean, there's so much activity happening, and yeah, it's something to be aware of, but and we need to be, you know, mindful of it. But I don't think there's room for doing that anymore with the transparency that's out there now and the demand from consumers to seeing change really happen. But that's my positive, optimistic outlook.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. You know, technology now is making it very impossible to hide things. There are 4 other things that I'd love you guys to answer, but we're gonna be tight on time. There's questions coming in about how collecting needs to change, how sorting needs to change, what the service models are around fashion that can work with these flows, and also what are the key technical challenges still left to solve. So anyone come in and quick fire answer for those questions.
This is Karla. Everything from collecting, sorting, pre-processing, recycling technologies, all of those technologies still have to be commercialized. They do not exist at scale.
Right, all the more reason we need to work together to get this happening. Anyone else? Thanks, Karla.
I mean, I think it was just occurring to me, we need to get some ongoing sort of, you know, forums in a way on the go from today, don't we?
Yeah.
As a group, because these are all conversation starters and there is so much so much to talk about. But I think just even identifying what the questions are is going to be, you know, an incredible job for everyone to do.
Yeah, thank you. And we know, I mean, I suppose we've come to this moment in time because we know that these are the questions that need addressing, and these are the sort of shared expertise areas that need to be convened. And we know that there needs to be an injection of of funding and a move towards policy change. But we're going to have to wrap up now with some final comments. Thank you so much for your brilliant questions. They are all going to be noted and they will all go into our research that lies ahead. It's a moment really to talk about what's going to happen next from this point. I'm going to come to Cindy for final words, but before I do, I just want to ask Phil to show everybody the final Menti that we brought up for you, the survey.
Yeah, so I've just posted in here an opportunity for a link where you can go and give your views both on how you found this session, but also what you're planning to do next. So it's more than just a review form, it's actually a next steps action planning opportunity too. It'll take a couple of minutes. It'd be great to get your views immediately. For those who like multitasking, you can start now. So thank you very much for that and all the wonderful ideas, including the comments about where was New Zealand on the map. So thank you. We've got a load of stuff on chat. Please do save that if you want, saving chat with the 3 dots to study later, and we'll be poring over it too.
Yeah, very good question.
Hasnain has a birthday today. I'm looking who else has a birthday in a group this big, and the birthday problem. There must be a few others who do on this very special day. So happy birthday, Hasnain.
Thank you very much.
Great, brilliant. Well, that puts us really well into the party mood. So I'm going to hand over to Cindy to tell you about next steps and a very special invitation.
Okay, Gwen missed her glory moment of explaining how people can get involved in World Circular Textiles Day. It's not live yet. We'll keep you posted, but our website is going to have the 3 phases to circularity and a participatory platform for getting involved in helping to shape. Someone's got their microphone on. Help to shape the 3 phases. So watch out for it. We're going to have more webinars as well, focused on different aspects. But to end on, we are all inviting you to a very special date on October 8th. We'd like you to plan your party outfit. 2050, it's a success party when we've actually achieved circularity. And I'm going to be 80 years old then. So yeah, I hope we can get there sooner because I might be a bit tired by then. But thank you, everyone, for getting involved. This is just a beginning, and let's keep going and building upon it.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to all of our panel. Thank you to everyone that came today. Find us over on the website, along with a film of this session, downloadable PDF, and ways to get involved. Have a good rest of the day.